perspective. One is sufficiency, another one is consistency. That means whether one if we come up with one estimator for a parameter, then we have to talk about whether that estimator is sufficient to describe the given parameter or not, or we do need further estimator. And after once we will discuss about sufficiency, then we will go to discuss about consistency. That means in the long run of sample size, whether that estimator is going to be consistent with parameter, that means going to converge to parameter in probability or in distribution, some kind of convergence situation you will see it here. So those things we will discuss in detail, and if time permit, then we will go to talk about one generic approach, general approach to perform estimation. That approach, there are various approaches. So one of them is maximum likelihood approach. So that approach we will talk about. So coming to outline of today's lecture, first I would like to give a recap of efficiency that we discussed in last class. And efficiency is the it is the best measure through which we can say that whether the given estimator is a efficient one or not, or you can also come up with relative sense efficiency from the relative perspective. That if you are having any two estimator for a parameter, then like suppose you are going to estimate mean of a population, then you may have various estimator for estimating that mean. Then among those various, which one will be the most efficient? It is based on that breakup of mean square error. That always we break mean square error into two part. One we are calling it variance of the estimator, another we are calling it uh, bias, a square of bias of the estimator. So that means variation. So generally we focus only on variance of the corresponding estimator. If suppose the estimator happens to be unbiased, in that case there would be no bias term. So just anyhow, in any situation, we just focus on uh, variance of the estimator. You can go for bias variance trade-off. There is no issue. A square of bias term will come. So this one is very important kind of thing in case of drawing efficiency of a given estimator. Afterward, we will discuss about sufficiency and consistency. These are also very important in sense to justify that estimator with which you try to estimate a parameter, whether that one is going to consistent in long run of the sample size or not, and whether that estimator is sufficient to describe the complete parameter or not, or that complete data or not. Those things we'll discuss here, and if time permit, then we will go to talk about maximum likelihood estimation. So actually, if you talk about estimation process till now, we are discussing about only one kind of estimation, that point estimation, like sample mean and sample variance kind of things. Okay, but these are what it looks like these are defined in an ad hoc manner, and there is no what we call it a proper theory. So if you try to go for general approach, then among the general approach there are three approach. One approach that we are calling it method of estimation. First one is maximum likelihood, second one is in short we are calling it map maximum a posteriori map, and third one is a least square approximation. There are generally you will see that three technique to estimate any kind of parameter, and third one what least square estimation we are calling it. So here in this it is all about probability. So I will discuss maximum likelihood and ma maximum a priority. These two technique I will talk about it. So this one is Bayesian approach. This we are calling it Bayesian approach. This approach is a classical approach. So coming to again recap of the last class, that regarding efficiency of an estimator. So I will talk about further that efficiency, and does it has any relation with directly unbiased estimator? What kind of relation we see that? So I had already mentioned that in case of unbiased estimator, the mean square error of corresponding unbiased estimator, it would be just equal to variance of the estimator. So just variance is enough to describe. So Generally, if someone is saying that if I'm having an unbiased estimator, does it means that it is a very good estimator? It is not always necessary. I had in last class I had taken two examples. So three examples were there in which two were unbiased and was third one was bias. But we had seen that the variance of third one was least. So we can't directly say that a unbiased estimator, being an unbiased estimator, would be a good estimator. So we have to look further kind of things. So we are taking a sample of size n, that means a random sample of size n, and we are defining mean. We are taking a random sample of size n, and those that sample has been taken from a distribution whose mean is theta and the variance is sigma square. Okay, then we can define two estimator. We are defining two estimator for this sample, for this given sample. One estimator we are defining it by sample mean theta 1, capital theta 1 hat. We are defining it by sample mean x bar, that is defined as a what, 1 by n times summation of xi is from I vary from 1 to 1. That one is definition of sample mean. Okay, and we are defining another estimator, that capital theta 2 hat. So we define it by a single observation x1. So with x1, that first observation, through first observation we are defining theta 2. Okay, so we are having two estimator. So can we say that which one is better? Because both, we will see that both are unbiased estimator, and being unbiased estimator, again we have to look further criteria, that efficiency. Here unbiasedness is not enough to describe the better one, which one is better, which one is the worst. Okay, so we can see the unbiasedness nature of capital theta 1 hat and capital theta 2 hat. How we can see? So we have to find the mean or expectation of the corresponding estimator. So expectation of theta 1 hat, it is just equal to theta, that it, what does it say? That is expectation of theta 1 hat, it is equal to true value of theta. That means theta 1 is a unbiased estimator. Unbiased, in short, I will write UE. Okay, likewise if you try to see the expectation of theta 2, the expectation of theta 2, it would be equal to expectation of x1, because theta 2 is defined by x1 through first observation we are defining it. So again expectation of x1 is what? X1 is coming from the same source, it is what, it is part of the sample, so that's why it would have the same mean. So we can say that second estimator is also unbiased estimator. So both are unbiased estimator. So we can't conclude that which one is a better one. We have to look for another measure. That measure is coming here. We know that here both are unbiased estimator, and hence we can say that mean square error would be equal to expectation of, sorry, variance of the estimator. It would be equal to variance of the estimator. So variance of the corresponding estimator is more important in this case. So what is the variance of the sample mean? Variance of sample mean is sigma square by n. And what is the variance of theta 2? That happens to be x1. It would be just sigma square. So easily we can see that variance of theta 1 is less than variance of theta 2, and hence we can say that theta 1 is the better estimator because of lower mean square error, and that lower mean square error is, it is because of lower variance of theta estimator. Okay, so that is the comparison through what we call it variance. You can compare it. That variance is very important role. Variance of estimator is a very important role in order to decide which one is better in case of unbiased estimator. Now we will try to talk about unbiased estimator for a sample variance. What kind of so there are various sample variance, among them which one would be unbiased, so that we have to check it again in order to get expectation of that. So consider we are having a random sample of size n, and that sample has been taken from the distribution which is having mean theta and the variance sigma square. So we are defining a estimator like this way. S bar s square, we define it by in plus of n, we are taking 1 by n minus 1, and a square summation of all the mean deviation by sample mean deviation of data by sample mean. Okay, so if you simplify it, then and it will take this form. it will take the simplification is very simple because it is just dealing with algebraic calculation with the summation. And what you do afterward, try to find the expectation of this sample variance s square. So if you try to find expectation of s bar s square, then it is just equal to sigma square. That one is the true variance of the population. So we can claim that this sample mean which is defined in this form is an unbiased estimator. So I'm taking one example here how generally we define uh, those estimator. So consider t with the time that is needed for a specific task in a factory to be completed. Okay, so let t1 t2 up to t6, it happens to be a random sample of size 6, and just we observe only one, we are having only one observation. That means only one value of that sample. There would be various sample of size 6. That means only one observation we are having. One, that means one value of that sample, that I would like to say that. So that value is 18, 41, 21, 42, 17, 43, 16, 4, T4, T4, 24, 45, and 24, T6. So that is it. Now question is coming here. We have to find sample mean. We have to find sample variance. We have to find uh, sample standard deviation. So these three we have to find it. So from this single observation we can find all these easily, because here a small notation I have taken, but that means these are just one a specific observation of the corresponding estimator. That's why a small I have taken it here, and we can calculate those small things from the single observation only. So that's why if you are trying to calculate t a small bar, that means one estimate of the sample mean, then it would be just what summation of this value divided by what is the size of sample. That one is 6. So value that we are getting 19,433, it is the sample mean for this single observation. And likewise also we can calculate, once we are having a sample mean, by utilizing this one and using the definition of the sample variance, we can calculate sample variance. It is 8.67, and if you do a square root of this one, you will get sample standard deviation. That one is 2.94. Okay, now I will talk about second part of this lecture. That one is sufficiency and consistency of an estimator. So all about that estimator means point estimator I am talking about right now. So what is sufficiency? Sufficiency, it says that suppose you are having a estimator, or simply you can say that you are having a statistic that has been generated from a a random sample. Then we will say that it is sufficient for estimating a parameter theta if the distribution the distribution of or simply you can say the joint distribution of data is independent of parameter. Or simply if you put condition on theta, if you put try in order to find the density of x condition on the statistics, then that density is independent of the parameter. In that is the mathematical meaning of sufficiency, that is that density of data condition on statistic would be independent of parameter. So intuitively, if you say that yes, sufficient statistic is capturing all information in theta, that all information which is meant for theta through data only. So your data is enough to that. So what is happening, that once you come up with one sufficient statistic, and you come to know that statistic or estimator happens to be a sufficient statistic, then you can leave the data and just proceed with that estimator itself, because that would be enough to describe completely about the data set itself. That is the meaning of sufficiency. So I will give I'll give more concrete visualization how we can visualize sufficiency. So let us start with joint distribution function. Like we are taking a joint distribution function, that one is coming from the data, and theta is unknown to us, that we don't know that theta is unknown to us. So joint distribution can be written like this way. Suppose this x data is coming from Gaussian distribution. So from the Gaussian distribution we can write it like this way. X is having how many observation? We can say that uh, x is having n number of observation. X, what does mean x? X is having n, uh, x1, x2, xn, n copies we have taken. So it is one observation we have taken with that we denote by vector. X1 is coming from that one is the first coordinate of sample, second coordinate, second and nth part in the sample size sample of size n, and this one is the first, the second, likewise you can say that. So we can calculate joint density by taking idea of IID condition we have taken, do product of individual density, do product. After that what will happen, this coefficient, all these are what independent of that with respect to product, so it will come out from there, and the product will enter into exponential, and we know that product convert an exponential argument of exponential into summation. That's why summation we are getting it here like this way. So this is a joint distribution for the x, okay, with unknown theta. Now we add and subtract here is sample mean in order to see sufficiency of sample mean. When we do adding or subtracting here, like we are adding is subtracting sample mean and adding, so after that we are getting this kind of expression. Okay, leave it here right now. We will try to come up with distribution of a function of sample mean, and after that we will take ratio of that. So suppose here sample mean we have taken x bar. X bar is the sample mean as a statistics from the data. Okay, so what is the if we try to find the distribution of this one will also have Gaussian distribution. We are defining like this way, and it is a sample mean. So easily you can ask what would be mean of sample mean. It always happens to be the true parameter that several times I had already told that. Okay, that the theta is taking, and if I asking what is the variance of sample mean, variance of sample mean, I have already said that it would be sigma square by n. You can always calculate that. So that's way in place of variance we are writing it is sigma square by n here, and here again we are writing sigma square by n. So n which is in denominator, it will go up in the numerator. Okay, sigma square by n is coming here. So this is the what this is the distribution of function of statistics. So now we will divide joint distribution with this distribution. After dividing, what we get in right hand side, if you simplify it, then theta will be cancelled out, finally we are having this term. So if you observe closely this term is totally independent of theta. There is no presence of theta here, you observe. So simply you can say that you have expressed your joint density as a product of function of data. This one is just a function of data. You can call this one h of x. It is function of data times you can call q of function of statistics, distribution of distribution of function of a statistic, that q is coming. You can take it condition, but the theta, here it is a classical approach. So what is theta would be a vector. So this condition is only valid for random variable, but the theta is not a random variable, so you can replace it to just semicolon. You can replace it by semicolon. We are not putting in condition over theta. In Bayesian approach, we will this theta would be random variable in nature. So just condition, there is no issue. So we have already expressed joint density as a product of just it would be function of data only times the density of density q as a function of what sample statistic. So here simply this one you can say that if you put conditioning through this sample statistics, then this one would be what independent of theta. If you put conditioning over this one, you know, conditioning through that this term will be cancelled out. If you put conditioning over this one, then this would cancel out. So only we would have what h of x, and hence we can say that it is independent of the joint density is independent of theta condition on sample statistic. Okay, now I will talk another term that one is consistency. That means in large sample size, what kind of nature the estimator would have. So that thing we will discuss about. So an estimator, we will say that it is consistent, and here n is silent, you can put it when we are calculating estimator, we always take a sample of size n, something like that. So that's why here I am taking n again. So we will say that estimator capital theta hat, it would be consistent if the corresponding estimator is going to converge to theta in probability. The convergence here, because this theta hat, it would be what, it would be a random variable. So if it is a random variable, so that's why we directly can't talk about deterministic convergence. We have to talk about convergence in probability. So that's why, that is the meaning of consistency, that the sequence of estimator, various sequence of estimator for various sample size, you will get various sequence of estimate, sequence of estimator, various member of sequence of estimator. So you have to talk about convergency of that sequence of estimator. If it is going to converge to theta in probability, then we will claim that theta hat is an consistent estimator for theta, parameter theta, small theta. Okay, so how we define convergence in probability? We define it that for a very small accuracy epsilon greater than or equal to 0, that means limiting value of the probability that theta n is within within epsilon of theta, the theta hat is within epsilon of theta is what, that means probability is equal to 1. The limiting value of the probability that that means theta, it would be somewhere here, it would be, so what is the limiting value of probability that theta is within epsilon distance of theta hat is within epsilon distance of theta. So this point would be theta plus epsilon, this point would be theta minus epsilon. Okay, so you just try to find the probability of limiting value of this capital theta hat minus theta, which is left. What is the probability, what is the probability of limiting value? So here n will come here because sample size you are going to increase. So when it is going to approach to 1, as n tends to infinity, that means sample size is very big in that case. And same criteria you can write it also in another way. There is equivalent representation, that means what is the probability, limiting probability that theta is out of the epsilon wall, out of the epsilon wall of small theta, theta hat is outside the, so like this scenario. So that equivalent version is coming like this. What is the limiting value of the probability that theta hat is epsilon away, that we write it modulus of theta hat minus theta greater than 0, epsilon away from 0. What is the limiting probability? So the limiting probability, we say that it is equal to 0. If it is 0, then we say that theta hat is the consistent estimator of theta, that parameter theta. So that is that. So both are equivalent terms. Okay, now I will take few examples for that. So consider a random sample of size n, and those sample has been taken from a distribution whose mean is theta and variance is sigma square. Okay, but we don't know the distribution, the distribution from we don't know. So if you define an estimator, that one is a sample mean, then we can claim that this sample mean, it is a consistent estimator of true mean. This theta is the true mean that we observe it here. It is so we are theta, this theta, small theta is unknown to us. Only we can do what, this is given to us, this symbol is given to us. From there we try to estimate one estimator of that sample mean. We are defining it like this way, and we can claim that this one is an consistent estimator. How? So easily what you do, I told that just establish this result, this equivalent result. So try to find the probability of the probability that this sample mean, which is epsilon away from theta, epsilon away from theta, this, what is the probability that sample mean is epsilon away from theta? So we can easily get that bound of this one. So this inequality we are called saying that this one is a Chebyshev inequality. It is coming from Chebyshev inequality. Well, very easy to prove. You can see that. So this probability, if you try to see, it is always bounded. If you see this kind of situation, then this probability is always bounded above by variance of the corresponding estimator divided by epsilon square. That accuracy, which one is coming here. And we know that what is the variance of sample mean? Variance of sample mean is sigma square by n. So that's why we are writing here sigma square. So we can say that this probability that sample mean is epsilon away from theta, true parameter theta, is what? It is bounded above by sigma square by n into epsilon square. And we know that if sample size is going to increase very far, then what will happen? This is going to approach to 0. So that's why this will claim that this relation, that limiting probability of that theta hat is or x bar is epsilon away from theta would be 0. Equivalently, we can say that limiting probability that sample mean is within epsilon uh, interval of theta, that would be equal to 1. That probability, so that it is already established. That simply we can see that here sample mean, it happens to be an consistent estimator of true mean theta. Okay, so as sample mean, what we observe that also we know that we are having information that sample mean happens to be an unbiased estimator. Why? Because expectation of sample mean happens to be equal to true mean. So we can also establish consistency, that mean square error, consistency through mean square error. So we know that mean square error, it would be equal to variance of the sample mean plus bias. But bias is, this x bar is unbiased estimator, so bias would be 0. So bias is not coming. And we know that variance of x bar is sigma square by n. So from here you can calculate that we can see that the mean square error is approaching to 0 when sample size is very large. What does it conclude? It conclude that consistency of an estimator can be also established with the help of that convergence of mean square error to 0. So that there is one more approach. One approach that we are defining it through this convergence in probability. Another approach for few estimator, we can define consistency through mean square error as well. So that's why I will generalize this a specific result that is only for sample mean. I will generalize it for other kind of estimator. So what is generalization? It says that, so suppose we are having a sequence of estimator for a parameter theta that we want to estimate. Okay, and suppose some information is given to us that mean square error of the estimator is approaching to 0 when sample size is very big. Then we can say that this result will imply that the corresponding theta hat, that estimator, it would be a consistent estimator of parameter theta. So that it says that. So how you can prove that? It can prove easily using probabilistic inequality. So what we do, we try to find probability that theta n, it is epsilon away from, what is the probability that theta n is epsilon away from true parameter theta. So that probability, this probability would be equal to this probability. Due to symmetry nature, it is coming, just do squaring. So due to symmetry, it will, these two probability would be equal to each other. Okay, now here, after coming here, you can apply here Markov inequality. So these are very simple kind of inequality. If you want to see the proof of this one, I can discuss this one. Otherwise, proofs are very simple, elementary kind of proof. So this we are saying that Markov inequality. Through Markov inequality, we can get upper bound of this probability. It is upper bound. If you try to see here, it is talking about what? Expectation of a square of this modulus term. So if we do a square of modulus term, it becomes what? It just becomes a square of the term itself. Modulus is not playing much important role in case of a squaring. So it becomes just what? What does it become? It becomes expectation of simply mean deviation of estimator. We can say that it is expectation of mean deviation of estimator. What does it talk about? It is actually talking about variance of the estimator. This is the from the definition of variance of estimator. It is what? It is actually variance of estimator, or simply directly we can't say variance of estimator unless this theta hat is an unbiased estimator. Simply it is talking about a square. Theta hat is the estimated value of parameter theta, and theta is the true value. So this we are calling it error. After that we are doing a squaring, and after that we are finding mean. That means it is actually talking about mean square error. So that's a mean square error of the corresponding estimator. So in numerator we observe that this term is nothing, just mean square error of the estimator, and denominator we observe epsilon square. Okay, but the condition is already given here in this statement that mean square error is approaching to zero when that sample size is very large. So that's where this ratio will approach to zero when n tends to infinity. What does it talk about? That means if you take limiting value of this probability that theta hat is epsilon away from parameter theta is approaching to zero. So we can say that theta hat it is an consistent estimator. So this result is just based on here this that mean square when mean square error is approaching to zero for large sample. So that is the scenario. Simple. So mean square error is approaching to zero. Simply it will imply that the corresponding estimator it would be a consistent estimator. Okay. So further we take what again a sample, a random sample of size n from some kind of source whose distribution we don't know, but we know we know that mean is theta. That one is unknown to us. Also we don't know the mean as well. Also we variance is given here. Sigma square is the variance. So an estimator of so okay, sigma square should be variance. That one is also unknown to us. We don't know mean. Also we don't know variance both. So can we define estimator of sample variance? So here one estimator of sample variance we are defining it like the similar result definition of variance. So we are defining 1 by n into uh, sum of a square of mean deviation, sum of a square of mean deviation. So if you simplify it is taking this form, and if you try to find expectation of this sample mean, expectation of this sample mean is equal to n minus 1 divided by n times all times sigma square. So easily we can say that the expectation of s square which is defined through this formula, we are getting expectation it is not equal to sigma square. Clearly it is not equal to sigma square. So what does it mean? It simply says that this sample variance what we have defined through this formula, it is not a unbiased estimator. Actually it is a biased estimator. So our next criteria that we have to calculate what is the bias. So bias it would be simply very easy to calculate. Subtract it from sigma, then you will see that sigma square by negative of sigma square by n, that would be bias. Bias easily you can get it, negative sigma bias of the above estimator, or sorry, notation was s. You can calculate it, it would be n sigma square by okay minus sigma square. If you simplify it, it would be just a negative of sigma square by n. This is the bias of the above variance where the denominator contains 1 by n. If you don't want this kind of bias, that's where you need to perform Bessel correction. Now, now we will discuss about maximum likelihood approach regarding method of estimation. So, till now, what we were definition we had defined for sample mean and sample variance, those were just we define it through fluke and through some idea of the mean and definition of mean and variance through which we had defined. That means here sample mean was defined like this way. Idea was it was what idea was from true mean, the definition of true mean in the smaller size population of what you used to calculate. So through that it was defined, and xi. So we had already defined, but we don't know how. Till now we haven't discussed why these sample mean and variance are defined like this way. Why it is defined like this way, how these things are coming. So we will talk about justification. What are those approaches? So those approaches are actually directly coming from some techniques. So one technique is maximum likelihood estimation, and that we will discuss how it is coming from maximum likelihood estimation. So we'll see that these two definition of sample statistic. One is sample mean, another one is sample variance. It is directly coming from this maximum likelihood approach. We will see it here. So here further, what is maximum likelihood approach? So that means here what will happen? So we, at hand we will have few observation of data. That few observation of data we will have at our end. So observation of data from that observed data. That means we have already observed data, and from that data we try to define a likelihood function. And in likelihood function, we are coming with one unknown parameter. That parameter is unknown to us. So we want to estimate the parameter. So how we can estimate? We can estimate by maximizing the likelihood. In that process, what will happen? It will approach some kind of distribution. When you maximize the likelihood, actually likelihood is not a distribution, but when you maximize, then in that case it will, that likelihood will approach to one distribution, and with respect to some argument of theta, that theta we will call it maximum likelihood estimator. So consider a random sample of size n we are taking, and we are putting assumption that these are IID, independent and identically distributed. That means these are coming from the same source. That means an independency. And suppose the mean of the source is mu and the variance is sigma square. So these are given information to us. But what is a specific value of mu? We don't know. What is the specific value of sigma square? We don't know. Okay, we want to estimate. We want to estimate value this true mu and true sigma square. We are willing to estimate. How we can estimate? So we can estimate in two different approach. One is that suppose xi's might be discrete or xi's might be continuous. So suppose xi's are discrete. First condition, we are taking xi's are discrete. That means these xi's are coming from some discrete distribution, some discrete random variable. Okay, so we are having one observation of that sample of size and one observation. This one is single observation. From this single observation, with respect to that, we will define a likelihood function. So we are defining a likelihood function. How? We are defining it through from the joint distribution of this sample joint distribution of this sample. We are defining in such a way. How we defining? We are putting condition IID condition here, independent and identically distributed. That's where this joint distribution would be what? Product of individual observation, density of individual or probability mass. It is a discrete, so we will talk about probability mass function, probability mass function of individual values. So that's why it is coming like this way. And if you, what you observe here, this function is what here. It is defined in term of this product. This function we are calling it likelihood function. We are calling it likelihood function, and here argument is theta. That theta is unknown to us. If you maximize this likelihood and the value of theta for which we are getting a maximum value of this likelihood function, that theta we are calling it likelihood, maximum likelihood estimate. So this theta hat we denote it by ml, the maximum likelihood estimate of theta. Okay, with respect to this, if you substitute, it would be a distribution. Okay, so another situation we are taking it, suppose xi's are continuous. That means a continuous random variable will have probability density. So with respect to that, we are defining likelihood function again as a product of probability density of individual member, this member of the sample, individual member. Okay, so again we are getting a function here. Xi's are given to us, no, these are fixed, theta is unknown to us. So we will try to maximize this likelihood function with respect to theta again, and in that process we are getting an argument of theta that we denoted by theta cap ml. That means maximum likelihood estimate of parameter theta. So it is case of continuous random variable. This one is case of discrete random variable. Geometrically, if we are willing to visualize, we can visualize like this way. So the likelihood function for continuous data, it is this kind of plot, and we try to find the argument for which this likelihood function is having maximum value. So here we can observe that at this point the likelihood function is having maximum value. So that's where it would be one estimate of theta. And if you come in discrete case, then here we can observe that the probability is highest at this point. So we can set this point is the maximum likelihood estimate of the this theta, maximum likelihood estimate. That is the theory behind maximum likelihood estimation. And do we have time? Yeah, 4 minutes. So here I will take few example here. So what is happening that for discrete case I will take that data is coming from a binomial distribution whose probability of success we don't know, that parameter is unknown to us, and we will take a continuous example from that where random sample is coming from one exponential distribution whose parameter lambda we don't know. So here that situation is coming. So one is for discrete, another is for continuous. We will define, like first we will define likelihood function, later we will do maximization of that likelihood function. So here question is coming like this way: we have to find the likelihood function for two sample. There are two sample given. One sample is coming with respect to binomial distribution with unknown parameter theta. This probability of success is theta, it is unknown to us, just we are having at hand what one observation. This is one observation. Okay, likewise also this data here having one observation where data are coming from exponential distribution with unknown parameter. So here theta is also unknown. Okay, we have to estimate in order to estimate we need to first define likelihood function. So we are defining likelihood function for first case, that when data is coming from binomial distribution with unknown parameter. So what would be likelihood function? So again here we are using IID assumption, that means each xi happens to be independent and identically distributed. So due to that, how we define what is the probability distribution of probability mass function of binomial distribution? It would be what it is. This is the probability for a single x. Probability distribution would be what? It would be 3 choose x times theta is the probability of success, but that one is unknown to us, we don't know right now. Just we will put theta to the power x into 1 minus theta to the power 3 minus x. It is directly coming from the pattern of binomial distribution, and it will imply that it is just for individual single terms, uh, okay, single x. Okay, so but we have here a sample of size 4. So we will try to find likelihood function for this sample, that means this complete data set we try to find. So what we have to do, we have to do product of this individual density. If you do product, then you will get joint density with unknown theta, and if you simplify, then you are getting a pattern like this way. So these factorials are coming, it is coming with respect to x1, this one is coming with respect to x2, this one is coming with respect to x3. So here I should write it, it is x2, x3, x4. Okay, and likewise theta to the power x1 plus theta into theta to the power x2. So exponent will sum up here. So here theta to the power x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 times 1 minus theta to the power 4 minus x1 plus 4 minus x2 plus 4 minus x3. Likewise it will be in total it will be 12 minus x1 plus x2 plus x3. It is summation of these, you have to subtract it from here. Okay, now what is the observed value? Observed value is 1 3 2 2. That means value of x1 is what, first member is 1, value of x2 is 3, value of x3 is 2, value of x4 is 2. Okay, in that sample of size 4, first one is 1, second one is 3, third one is 2, and fourth one is 2. So that's why we have to substitute value of x1 x2 x3 for this single observation, and in that case we are getting this likelihood function. This is the likelihood function for this single observation, that you are assuming that data is coming from binomial distribution with unknown probability of success. Okay, so this is the likelihood function. Just you do maximize this one, easily you can maximize, and then you will get maximum likelihood estimate of theta. Likewise, regarding second problem, that here data is coming from exponential distribution and where the parameter is unknown. So again we have to define likelihood function with the help of this exponentially distributed data. What is that we define? It defined that lambda into e to the power negative of lambda x when for positive, when x is greater than equal to 0. So that is the exponential distribution or density of exponential random variable. So same thing here, but we don't know lambdas. That's why we represent it by theta. Theta happens to be unknown, so we are writing like this way. From here we are defining density. This is the density function of likelihood function for this observation, this single observation. We come up to see the likelihood function of this one. Just do maximize this one with respect to theta, you will get your maximum likelihood approach. So we will see this maximum computation of theta through maximum likelihood approach in next class. We are already having likelihood function, just we need to apply this calculus technique, that maximization. Just find the derivative of this one with respect to theta equal to 0 and you will get value of MLA. Likewise also differentiate this one with respect to theta and equal to 0, you will get value of that maximum likelihood estimator of theta, maximum likelihood estimate of theta, you will get it. Okay, and it is already about 45 minutes. Anyone is having